On this podcast, the lion does not sleep tonight. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Not Your Father's Movies. As always, I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jesse, and we are the Dad Fathers coming at you with some big dad energy.
Every time, all the time.
All the time.
And today we're talking about both the original animated The Lion King, legendary from 1994, and we're also talking about its remake from 2019. Now, sort of this new trilogy we're setting up, our second trilogy, congrats to us, is about the old dad movies that we loved from when we were kids, had a connection to, and then how they've been changed and remade in Hollywood today. Disney's done this many times now. I don't know if we can get an accurate count, because every time I started thinking about it, I came up with a new one. But we picked The Lion King for our first one. And we wanted to talk about this because it's a movie that means a lot to all of us as dads, and we all grew up with it. So to start things off, the first Lion King came out in 1994, starring Matthew Broderick, Jeremy Irons, and James Earl Jones. It was directed by Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff, legendary Disney directors. And it was written by kind of an unfathomable number of screenwriters, story writers. It's kind of hard to nail down. On IMDb, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I'm still counting. It's still going for story material and writing. Too many writing credits to count. But the new Lion King is a little bit easier, a little bit quicker to break down. It's directed, of course, by Jon Favreau, who directed a few years ago the remake of The Jungle Book, starring Donald Glover, Beyonce, Seth Rogen, Chiwetel Ejiofor, John Oliver, and of course, returning James Earl Jones. This one is principally credited to Jeff Nathanson for its writing. So all of that dreary housekeeping and credit reading aside, Jesse, what are these movies about?
Yeah, so both movies have the same plot. They both open up with a circle of life montage of a bunch of animals gathering to a giant rock called Pride Rock, where they show Simba off as like his presentation, like he's been born and he's the new prince of the land. All the animals come and bow to him. Cut to a few years later, he's a little bit older, and his dad Mufasa shows him around the kingdom and says, "This is all ours, but don't go over to that shadowy place over there." When Simba tells Scar, his uncle, about this, Scar tells him, "Oh yeah, that shadowy place is actually an elephant graveyard. You should check it out sometime, but don't tell anybody I told you." Simba immediately goes off and tells his little girlfriend, Nala, about this elephant graveyard. So they rush off with Zazu, their babysitter, basically. They ditch him. They get to the elephant graveyard. Turns out there's a bunch of hyenas there, and Mufasa has to come save them. Afterwards, Mufasa and Simba have the classic father-son-dad talk, in which he says, "I actually care about you, but please never do that again." Scar hatches a plan to take Mufasa's throne, and he puts Simba down in a gourd, tells him to practice his roaring, in which a bunch of animals come and stampede around. Mufasa tries to save him. Scar kills him in the process. Simba thinks it's his fault, and Scar tells him to run away and never return. Simba then goes and is saved in the desert by Timon and Pumbaa, who basically raise him until he's an adult. And he learns that, Hakuna Matata means no worries. So
for the rest of your days.
For the rest of your days.
For the rest of your days.
So he grows up and I guess it's sort of a hippie environment if you think about it. Like, who cares about anything? Let's just go eat bugs all the time. Until his girlfriend Nala reappears out of nowhere and tells him, "Things have gotten really bad, and we wish there was a king to lead us." He says, "I am no king." Rafiki the monkey comes into the picture, and Rafiki shows... What?
Rafiki. He's not a graffiti artist.
That would be a great
Rafiki.
Oh, yeah. My name is Grafiki.
Grafiki. Yeah. Just put that up everywhere. That would be cool.
It's all tikis.
Yeah.
I apologize. I've seen the cartoon hundreds of times when I was a kid, and I got all their names wrong when I was younger. I wanted to Rafiki instead of Rafiki.
That's nice. No, you're good. Go.
So I still say that name to this day because that name is like cemented in my mind. So Rafiki shows him the dad ghost, in which Mufasa tells him, "You have forgotten who you are. You need to go back and become king." Simba decides to go become king. He fights off Scar. They have this big old confrontation. There's a big old fight scene. Scar loses. He's the king, and then the movie ends basically with the first scene where he is showing off his daughter to the whole kingdom, and that is the Lion King.
All right, that is The Lion King. And here at Not Your Father's Movies, we want to talk about movies like The Lion King. And we find ourselves kind of at this weird point so early in our podcast talking about these things, because usually we like to look back at the past, at dad movies as a genre that came before, granddad movies, and then try and look into the future to write a new canon for this genre. And with this episode and the following two that we're going to be doing, we're breaking some rules here, breaking some newly laid rules, because we're doing two. And I don't want to give too much of a spoiler with this one, but I don't think one of these movies is going to be in the dad canon at the end of this. Is this so? Am I jumping the gun?
You know, you might be jumping the gun, but I'll jump with you, man. I'll jump with you.
We're both hopping on top of a gun. It's wildly unsafe, but classic dad thing to do.
Classic dad thing to do. Jumping on guns. That's what every dad I know does.
Hey, that would be a really cool dad rap band. Jumping on guns.
Jumping on guns.
Jumping on guns.
Rhyming Boston with things.
Oh, this is an off mic conversation, but it's always on mic because Mike is here.
I'm here.
But anyway, so this being our podcast and us trying to talk about these things, so I think we should always start off, especially with these retrospective movies from our childhood, specifically our early childhoods, with talking about nostalgia. Mike, where did this find you? Where did you find it? How do you feel about it?
Man, I'm trying to remember. I've been trying to remember when it was that I first saw this movie, and I've seen it so many times. It's been a part of my life for so long that I have no idea. It came out in '94. I saw it sometime between '94 and now for the first time, and many times since. It's an incredible movie. It's a ton of fun, and there's a lot of kind of meaningful stuff that you pull from it. The story is great. It's fun to be with Simba throughout this ride. Timon and Pumbaa are just a blast and a half, and the scene with Nala, the love story with Nala is just beautiful.
Actually, really works. And a lot of these like classic Disney movies, it doesn't seem to be so reciprocal. It doesn't seem to be like there are two actual characters here.
Yeah.
It's like Little Mermaid, where Prince Eric is brave, sure, but maybe a little dumb.
Yeah.
Maybe a little gullible.
A little bit.
And maybe she's a little way too young.
A little bit. A little bit.
But we're supposed to like root for it and be cool with it. And this one really seems like the relationships amongst everyone are very mature, very lived in, real feeling, almost adult relationships.
Oh, yeah. And you have actual characters. That's what's amazing. You have them kind of progress as people. You see Nala and Simba as children being friends together, and then growing into love the way that their parents sort of knew that they should be, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Or Zazu, at least.
Or Zazu, at least. Yeah, that's for sure.
Betrothed.
Yeah. And watching it again now, I mean, it was definitely, a nostalgia trip to go back and watch it. I haven't actually seen it in several years because I didn't have kids growing up around me. I didn't have younger siblings, and having kids now, we haven't watched it with my kids yet, but watching some of these things, and especially with the retrospective of my father having passed, is a really powerful moment for me. So that's where I'm coming from when I come to this movie.
Yeah, a lot of emotion.
A lot of emotion, good and fully good. Good emotion.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jesse, you got anything to add to that, or do you want to start sharing yourself?
Yeah, I think I'll just jump right in. this movie was a big deal for my family because when it came out in 94, and I don't really remember this as much, but it started a family tradition where every Thanksgiving, we'd go out and see a movie. And the first movie that we started with was The Lion King. So for many years after that, we always went and saw a family like cartoon or something like that every Thanksgiving. Because The Lion King was actually that good that it just made that tradition for years to come.
Wow.
Cool.
And then growing up, I think we bought it on VHS almost immediately. And
I think the U.S. government sort of mandated that every family with a child in the 90s had to have the clamshell case with the VHS inside.
Yep. Yeah, just about me and everybody I knew all had this movie. It was like the staple you would see in everybody's like case of VHSs. It was always Lion King and then a bunch of random others, but always Lion King. And I think I watched it hundreds of times. But this movie in particular, like I remember seeing it when I was 3 on VHS, and it was hugely impactful for me because I learned about death for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had heard the word death thrown around, and I heard characters die, but when you watch it on TV, the characters always come back to life. So I just assumed like death was this thing where you just slept for a while, and then you woke up, and it was just a very long sleep.
It's like how many times did Optimus Prime, pass away in any of the Transformers things, or how many characters in Dragon Ball Z died, or just name a fantasy series and name a beloved character that has come back to life multiple times. Like as a kid consuming mass fantasy that's been given to you, especially in 90s and 80s cartoons, death is just the beginning.
Oh, exactly. So there weren't a lot that actually had characters die for real. So I remember I was watching it, I saw Mufasa die, and I scoffed at Simba. I was just like, why is he crying? He's gonna get back up. And then I turned to my brother and said that, and my brother just looked at me and was like, no, he's not. He's dead. Like, but when you're dead, you get back up, right? Nope. So then I had to go to my older brother and say, okay, wait, Tim was saying that Mufasa is never going to get back up again, but he's going to get back up again, right? And Joel said no. So then I ran to my mom, and then I was like, Mom, Mufasa's got to get back up. He's not dead, right? Like, that's not what death means. She's like, yes, that's what death means. And then I was like, well, are you going to die? And she's like, yes, I'm going to die. It won't be for a long time. You can go finish a movie, and it'll be okay. So, and then I went back, watched the rest of The Lion King, and still enjoyed it, but with my world shattered to this very day because I saw that scene.
I don't want to make a joke that might sound uncallous to your childhood, trauma, but
Oh, please.
like, if only coroners' offices around the world pursued the cause of death, and if the person was dead with such vigor as childhood Jesse trying to figure out if Mufasa was in fact DOA.
No, he's not dead. Let me ask someone else that I'm related to.
He's like they did the mirror test, they did the pulse test, like not good enough, stab him. Not good enough, run him over. Like
I'm just imagining your mom being there like, oh, we're having this conversation today, right now.
I'm making dinner. You just go watch the movie.
Like,
This is
no,
supposed to be
actually,
happy.
she didn't do, like, I remember this super clearly, and what's weird is I was 3, and I'm acting like I was articulating this all super well, and I'm sure I wasn't, but I remember what I was thinking. I was thinking all those things, like, no, my brothers are fooling me, I have to go to the source of all knowledge, Mom. Right. Because she's around. Otherwise, I would have gone to Dad. But, like, no, I think she was making dinner, but she stopped, she, like, crouched down, she looked me in the eyes, and she explained death to me. Yeah, she, like, it's one of those moments where, like, my parents just said the perfect thing in the perfect way at the perfect time. Yeah, it's kind of burned into my memory. I'll never forget that. Props to you, Mom.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Shout out to Mrs. Moore, who remembered my daughter's name and birthday, having met her only once over a year and a half ago.
Yeah, man, she's great that way. But yeah, so this is basically cemented. And then there's a whole dad thing. Like for years, I would reflect on like the whole conversation that Simba and Mufasa have, and man, that scene always terrified me in a particular way. Maybe we can get into that a little bit, but I think I'll just give the platform to you, Vito. How about you with nostalgia and Lion King?
This is a loaded one. This is a I think as we do our dad movie pantheon, I should create a separate pantheon of movies that are guaranteed to make Vito cry, because we're heading into a specific genre that has been scientifically engineered in some chemical underground lab to jerk tears unwillingly from my head. And this is definitely one. So I had a complicated relationship with my biological father. He and my mother divorced when I was a young child, and I had a very rocky relationship with him until he passed a few years ago. But this movie, The Lion King, was an early one. I think I was taken to the theaters to see it when I was, one, and I think that it was it's the first movie bought for me, and it was one that I would watch with my father a lot. And he would use lines from it. He would talk about it. He was a musician, and it inspired a lot of songs that he would write about it that were about me. And I think he really saw himself as Mufasa and me as Simba, in ways that I found at the time to be very comforting. I was a child of divorce, but looking back at it as the years go by and seeing the issues I had with him and his abandonment of me and my mother, a lot of these moments in this movie that used to ring true, they used to feel like moments of comfort, now don't feel that way. It feels a lot more angry. And so the moment in the animated Lion King where he is running he's running out in the dark and he just screams, "You said you'd always be there for me, but you're not," is really something that terrified me as a kid, thinking that oh, my father might not be here. And then when he wasn't there, it really felt like a rebuke. And it was something that he would always try and refute. And it was something that after he proved it correct, I would throw at his memory. And so Lion King and my relationship with my father are all very deeply tied together. I have to say it's a movie I draw a lot of comfort from, a lot of familiarity. I have a lot of familiarity with it, but it's a troubling movie. It's thorny, and there's moments in it where I see I put a lot of myself into Simba, and it's very personal to me for that. So I can't remember the first time I saw it, but I can't remember it not being a part of my life. And my mom would talk about how I would watch it obsessively.
Mhm.
She said there was a month where I watched it every single day, and all the way through, and I loved it. I had the little cassette tape of the soundtrack. I
Oh
knew all the
yeah.
songs. I had the book, the sing along books. I had the coloring books. I had a Simba doll. I had everything. Like this movie was my early childhood, pretty through and through. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, the Lion King is just like what you're saying, Jesse, is inextricable from my life. Um,
yeah,
I
and
would not
also
be who I am.
looking back on it, it's one of the few Disney movies where it's a male centric character. Uh, there, I mean, like all the big Disney movies tend to be about princesses, so this one was about a prince, to finally change things up a bit. So, like, of course, like you watching it every day for a month makes total sense to me because, like, it's either this or Cinderella, Snow White.
Yeah, I mean that was part of that the thing that the renaissance, right, of Disney animation in the 90s, is that it was that turn away from princesses, and so you got really unconventional movies like in the 80s, like you had like The Black Cauldron or The Great Mouse
Oh
Detective,
yeah.
or then you
Right.
would pivot further in and you get like that weirdo, which is another movie that I was obsessed with. Like you get Hercules, um,
Yeah.
you get these
Oh yeah,
very
I love that movie.
strange, yeah, maybe a future episode. Stay tuned. Um, and it was a part of that 90s, a part of that weird stuff that we were allowed to watch. And The Lion King, I think, is cream of the crop for that. And it was different. It did appeal to a different thing, a different audience. Because I think pre 80s, maybe you had The Fox and the Hound, you had Sword and the Stone, maybe as more male centric
Yeah.
movies.
Hmm.
And what we no, do have to say, just as clarifying, we're talking about stuff in the past. What we don't need is more male centric movies now. But as young boys, it
Yeah.
felt nice to be talked to in this way. So
I mean, yeah, I guess now we have mainly superheroes, but even well, I guess we have Pixar has a lot of these now, and now there's such a good variety with that that I don't really think we need to worry about it. But even so, there's like not a whole lot of Disney movies that I was thinking of where like there's a father son relationship. Um, like I can think of, in fact, there's not even a whole lot of like mother daughter. It's always like father daughter. I can think of a
Yeah.
whole lot that are father daughter. Um, especially like, especially in the 80s, 90s. There's like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
I guess, or it's a lot of times the parents are just out of the picture, like Cinderella, Snow White. I think both of them have the evil stepmothers show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Even weirdo things like I mean, it's another movie I love. I say weirdo because it's not really for children, but stuff like The Rescuers, which is about like evil foster parents and orphan children. A lot of orphan stuff happened in Disney between, I don't know, maybe the late 70s and the late 90s. It really was about a singular relationship between one parental figure and one child, or it was about the complete loss of the parental figure. And it has its DNA. I mean, back all the way going back to Bambi, right? About orphans and the misfits and the neglected ones, which I think really spoke to a lot of America, especially with the and a lot of the world. You know, rises in divorce rates, and global conflict and turmoil, and you're trying to speak to as many children as you can, and address the biggest wounds that you can. And so I think that's probably part of that focus is you don't want to show a happy family all the time. There's definitely happy family movies, but you don't want to show that all the time because that's just not the true experience of a lot of kids, especially in that age range at that time.
I think that's true, but I also think, that the kids love orphan stories. I loved orphan stories. I wasn't an orphan, but it was fun. It was always fun when you have the kids who are off on their own, you know.
Right.
I think that's also a part of it. I think there's definitely, they're definitely trying to say like, hey, you're in this situation that's different from a lot of other people. Here's, a story that you can relate to. But they're also saying, hey, you're a kid, you're going to like this story.
Yeah, it's almost like part of a power fantasy for a kid to be like, I don't have parents. Look at all the shenanigans I can get up to.
Yeah, it is true. It is. I mean, that I always love that. Like even Peter Pan is kind of like that to a very large degree.
Wendy is the mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to be, and they crave to be back home because they actually do have decent parents. It sounds like.
Rufio was just hurting inside. That's all that was wrong with him. He just needed a mom.
But if you think about it, Lion King isn't like about the perfect family structure either. Like I don't even see Simba very much with his mom, and his dad dies, so I can't really say like this is a perfect American family sort of movie.
Sarabi is always the voice of reason for him, right? He returns to her, and she is very wise. It's seen, very caring, and then later on, she's a part of everything. She's the one that's standing up to Scar and facing down the hyenas and stuff. Like she's doing her best, and that's why I don't think that Simba really prioritizes that relationship very much, is because it seems very natural for him, right? The thing he's missing is dad. Dad's gone. That's why I'm so bothered by it. Mom is here. Mom is solid. I'm not bothered by that. I think that I didn't want to interrupt your bigger point.
I mean, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I think the new one actually did a good job of putting Sarabi a little bit more in the crosshairs, not in the crosshairs.
She definitely
they highlighted
more
her
scenes.
Character.
She talked more.
Yeah, she talked more. There's that whole part of her standing up to Scar a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I think though it's kind of a natural father-son relationship. It's focusing on Simba and his dad because that's something that I think all sons, all kids do. They see themselves in their parents, especially the parent that's the same gender as them, because that's who they're going to be like, and all kids want to grow up to be like their parent. Both,
whichever
whether it's
mom
mom
sort of
or dad,
to.
but. Yeah, I think that's true. Whichever parent, and at different times. And I think at the age that Simba's supposed to be at when
Yeah.
we see him with his dad. That's a natural sort of
That's a
time
question
for him.
That's a question.
Yeah.
When I'm watching that, I'm seeing him firmly at like 9.
Okay.
You think 9? You think it younger?
In lion years, sure.
I don't know the mathematical conversion like dogs. But what like if he was a kid and like thinking about Jonathan Taylor Thomas at the time, I mean he was probably like 12. But
Mhm.
I don't is he cusping into teenage years? He still seems very childlike. Definitely not pubescent.
Yeah. Probably somewhere between 7 and 11.
Yeah,
That's what I'd say.
that's probably a good read.
Yeah,
Because I mean, the idea of Nala as like a romantic partner is
It's
just
gross.
it's gross.
Yeah.
It's gross. She's my friend. 7 to 11,
Yeah.
but he's flexing and stuff. Jesse, what were you about to say?
yeah. I was gonna go more solidly with like 11. Like he's
Oh, okay.
definitely. I mean, yeah, he's not interested in girls yet, right? But he's definitely focused on like growing up at this point because that's what the whole "I just can't wait to be king," right?
Yeah.
Which is also why I think he is so fixated right now on his dad because it's not just that he wants to be like his dad; it's that he has to be. He has to be the king. He's going to be forced to be his dad sooner or later.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay.
I think the giant crux of the story eventually, right? That's where you get the whole Rafiki, like he lives in you type deal going on.
Lives in you.
You.
Okay, so he's about that old, and so we're coming at it from these different angles. I really looking at the Lion King now from 1994. I don't think that this movie can change one iota. I don't think it needs to. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. There's nothing. There's nothing bad in any frame of it. It's a perfect movie, full stop. Like not a perfect
Mhm.
kids movie, not a perfect family movie. It's a perfect movie. The emotional beats are so deep. The music is so compelling and intense. And the imagery is beautiful. It's gorgeous the way these characters and these landscapes are rendered. And drawn, and just like the scene of Pride Rock, like on fire, and then the
So
rain
cool.
falling down this onto this Vanna and putting it out, and the smoke rising up, and just even just the crazy imagery with like the "be prepared" thing, where the rocks are coming out of like the Earth's core, and like and you have hyenas goose stepping and saluting like Hitler to Scar.
That was
I
wild.
love that. I love it all. I love how it gets absurd, but it's not even really absurd. It's heightened. It's like it's like every now and then a Broadway musical takes place on the savannah and it's fine and no one thinks it's weird. Like in the Just Can't Wait to Be King song where the animals are like all on top of each other
Yeah.
and dancing around. And I remember that because watching the new one, which I think we're going to have to start talking about here, that scene in particular was one of the biggest offenders and one of the worst scenes I've encountered. First of all, the new sound mix, the pushing up of the sax that's in the soundtrack makes it feel weirdly jazzy, and I don't appreciate this. And maybe this is just me as a fanboy talking, and sure, come at me if you want to with that, but I think it sounds worse. Objectively, I think it sounds worse. And the fact that it's so lame, it's just them running around a water hole, and at the
Mhm.
end, all of them walk out like they're the cast of Rent, just singing their hearts out in the damn watering hole. It's very upsetting to me, and it's felt so anticlimactic. And I felt that way for almost every single song. Every single song, they took away the original's iconic, beautiful, emotional imagery, and they made it photorealistic. They made it flat and unimaginative.
I-
Deeply offended. And I can't wait to go off more. I'm sorry. I'm just so mad now.
I don't know if I can add much to that other than to just highlight, yes, it was realistic, but it's a movie about singing animals, so why are you making it realistic?
And I just have to say, too, if you're going to make a photorealistic movie about singing animals with over-the-top emotions that are displayed on their animated faces, maybe don't pick cats. Because cats don't emote very much. They don't do much with their faces. They look angry, or they don't look like much. Their eyes sometimes close and they look sleepy, or they look pissed.
Yes.
So when he's singing, I just can't wait to be king, and you have a realistic face of a lion whose mouth is opening slightly and it's swelling to, I just can't wait to be king, and nothing is happening.
He just looks angry.
It just looks like vaguely irritated. Like if my cat looked like that, I think he was maybe constipated
Or hungry.
or tired.
Or he wanted me to pet him.
I don't know.
Or angry, or yawning, or just about anything. Yeah,
just a cat.
Yeah, part of the perfection of the 94 Lion King was that, like, since it was animated, like, it's not just animated, it's animated very, very well. Like, I can remember those characters' facial expressions burned into my mind, like when Simba first sees the stampeding herd coming toward him,
And
or
his
when he
face
sees,
falls and his eyes get big and the mouth is open.
yeah, and
And they
everything
do
goes
so much
dark.
with his ear.
His
Yeah.
ears.
They
Yeah,
do
and
so
his
much
ears
with
go
his
back.
ears. Yeah.
Or do you remember when Mufasa learns that Scar is going to kill him, and he just has that big surprise in his eyes that just shows so clearly, and then the scream of agony with on his face as he's falling down, or even like Zazu as he's smugly telling them they're going to get married. Everything, or Rafiki's face when he finds out Simba's alive and he does a maniacal laughter and is like drawing on his tree to say that the crossed out Simba that he had drawn earlier is now alive. Everything on there is so expressive, it catches your eye and your attention. And this new Lion King, I don't really know what they were going. Like, I didn't get anything from anybody. Like John Oliver as the new Zazu, I think he had much better lines, much better delivery in terms of like voice acting, right?
I think they let him riff more. Like I think there's definitely some moments where they're like, "All right, John, just talk for the camera." Like when they're sneaking up on Zazu, him and Nala, Simba and Nala.
Talks about his cousin.
Yeah, just talking about his cousin, or
His cousin who thinks he's a woodpecker. It was great.
And he just went around banging his head on trees. I mean, it's severely concussed. It actually did kind of sound like that line a bit sounded like he's in the booth and he's kind of like looking around, just trying to make somebody laugh. And it works. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's a great addition to the cast. I think he stands with Rowan Atkinson.
I have to say, I just couldn't. I just finished watching through all of Community again, and I could not stop hearing Professor Ian Duncan whenever he spoke, which was a blast and a half, but not the Lion King. I don't want Professor Ian Duncan in the Lion King. I think that would go very dark places.
I'm thinking about that line where he's like, "Well, good news, I'm sober for the first time, and I could not find the school."
But also, like, the photorealistic thing, since John Oliver, he does have these amazing lines, and he is channeling, like, the drunk professor and, like, his talk show host voice to this, which is amazing. But his face doesn't change. He's a bird. He moves his beak, and he can't be nearly as expressive as a 94 Zazu was, because you didn't have to be photorealistic beak. You could just change the beak form to whatever works for whatever word is being said, which made it work so much better. It made me care more about what Zazu was about to say rather than just a talking bird.
Right.
Which goes for basically most of the characters in the movie.
I agree. I agree to a certain extent here. So if we go down the replacements, okay, so the replacement for the big one that everyone really liked was the replacement of Timon and Pumbaa. I can't really think of the original voice actor for Pumbaa. Can you guys help me out?
I have no idea.
I might have to ask my secretary. I'm gonna ask my secretary. She takes her a little bit of time.
No, yeah. So it's Seth Rogen and Billy. Is it Billy? What's his name? What's the new Timon?
Eichton or something.
The one from Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared for this. Find it, secretary. Anyway,
we all have computers.
The original Timon, though, is Nathan Lane, and the new one is Billy Eichner, right? Because Billy on the Street. I don't think they're a one-to-one match whatsoever. I don't appreciate them. And look, you can't replace Nathan Lane. You can't replace Nathan Lane. I don't think it works. Nathan Lane is always that exact flavor that you need, and the flavor here is intensely neurotic, intensely egomaniacal, but also with a deep caring for Pumbaa. And Pumbaa has to have terrible self-esteem, and he has to be constantly put down by Timon and kind of be okay with it. They have a very odd relationship, and that's not the relationship in this new movie. I can't say what the relationship is. It seems very vague, very bland. And Seth Rogen, I think, does better than Billy Eichner. The original Pumbaa, as Mike's secretary is letting me know, is named Ernie Sabella. I think he's a long-standing voice actor. But even him, though, he had such a depth of his voice. And Seth Rogen, while matching him in timbre, does not match him in feeling. He doesn't dig down like Ernie Sabella does when he goes like, "When I was a young warthog." He's selling it. He's going for gold.
That was beautiful, Vito.
Thank you. I tried.
You've got a career ahead of you here.
I hope I can only voice fat pigs.
That's the career, yeah.
But then a last thing I wanted to say about Timon and Pumbaa, is aside from, I don't think that the two actors they brought on, I think they're good. I think they do good with their material. But when looking at the throne that they're occupying, I think they're too small for it.
Yeah.
And also them removing Pumbaa's whole "they call me Mr. Pig" joke. I don't.
That was weird.
Why did you remove it? Instead, the line that they use. So
he's running, right?
What?
Didn't they call him fat? Wasn't that the joke in this one?
Yeah, they called him fat.
He says,
right.
He
they fat shamed him.
His line is, "I may run from a hyena, but I will always fight a bully."
Yeah.
And it sounds so flat and so preachy. I didn't like it. I thought the original did it just fine. He doesn't want to be called a pig. And that's fair. And it's funny too, because he is a pig.
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me?
They call me Mr. Pig.
And I love it too, because it's like it's a great line. It's really funny, but it's also a wonderful reference. It's from Sidney Poitier's role in the 1960s in The Heat of the Night, when he says, "They call me Mr. Tibbs." Because he's a black detective coming in to a mostly white precinct in the South. He's getting all this heat, all this crap from everybody. And that's like his big line where he insists upon his own identity and insists upon his independence. And it's so funny. The joke is that this arc of this character is the same as Pumbaa's arc of character, but it's played very simply, very cleanly, very quickly. And in a way that kids think is really funny. And adults, if you're in the know for it, have seen the movie and you care about that sort of thing, you can see it too. And you can be like, no, he's owning his identity. Don't call me a pig. If you're going to call me something, have some respect.
Call me Mr. Pig.
Mr. Pig, come on.
Yeah.
That's the joke that they're making here. Is it's a reference joke, but in the original movie, it's a rousing cry of independence and personhood.
Yeah.
Wow, you're way more into that scene than I ever have before. Like, I just thought it was mildly funny, and I thought this new scene, it was all right. It wasn't as good, but also I just have to say on Timon and Pumbaa, like when you were first describing the relationship of Timon and Pumbaa with the egomaniacal and always putting Pumbaa down and stuff on Timon's part, like. I actually thought for a second you were describing the new one, because I actually got more of that from their relationship in this new one. You know what, to be honest, in some ways I prefer the new Timon and Pumbaa. Like, I think they have a different flair to them. They're not the shock from both of you was great. Yeah, I think they were a little more adult, I would say. Like, I don't like the Timon and Pumbaa of old, like, appealed to kids. Like, I thought they were hilarious. My kids just didn't care about this Timon and Pumbaa, but I was laughing most of the time they were on screen. I thought they were really funny, and they just seemed like like characters I know. Like, yeah, we don't really care about the world. We care about, like, our tiny little bachelor pad or little community, whatever it is that they're living in, some kind of commune. I don't know what it is, this one. It's kind of weird, a little zany. I kind of
I
like
didn't
it.
actually appreciate the addition of a bunch of other characters who never get names and just hang out with them. I kind of liked in the original that it was just them kind of against the world. I think they actually say that.
Yeah.
And so it was weird seeing like, oh, and also it's these other indigenous creatures that we hang out with. And you go, all right, what are their names? And is one of them voiced by Chance the Rapper? I think
I think
maybe.
so. I'm pretty sure.
Well,
You
I
prefer
think
libertarian Timon and Pumbaa to vegan cult Timon and Pumbaa.
Yeah, no, I really do. I prefer that like Rage Against the Machine,
Yeah.
opting out of it, too cool for school, Timon and Pumbaa, to whatever nonsense this was that I saw. I hate to speak so generally and so degradingly of such a piece of garbage. But no,
I mean, the thing is, like, they're essentially the same. Like, just how the libertarian against the world Timon and Pumbaa for '94, they were still vegan, right? They couldn't help but be vegan. In fact, that was still like the whole eating bugs thing, right? It was.
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess that's not technically vegan. I don't know
it's
what
not
that
at all. But
Yeah, I'm not really dunking on vegans. I'm just
no,
I'm
no,
just
it was just what it was in the original movie was that it was what it was meant to be is it's meant to be another step away from his identity. He's losing his identity even as a carnivore, and embracing this. And I think by having a land of forest friends, I don't think they added anything to this relationship. I think they only subtracted from it. From this primacy of this trio of characters, and so when the moment comes when they see Simba and Nala getting cozy, and he says, "Do you seeing what I'm seeing? I think our trio is down to two." It's kind of a cast off line in the new Lion King.
Yeah.
Whereas in the original one, it's this big moment where they howl at the sky. Our friend, in short, our friend is doomed, and then they like break
Yeah.
down sobbing with each other. And I loved that. I loved that relationship, and I feel like this movie just did a disservice to it, in almost
Well,
every way.
no, well,
Yeah.
they did to that very specific dynamic, but they just gave a slightly new dynamic, and I didn't think it was bad. I thought, like, I just know people like this. I know people that think like this. I know people that all live together and say these sorts of things. Like, it just made more sense to me. Like, I am more familiar with these characters than I am with the '94 Timon and Pumbaa. Like, if you're gonna make a photorealistic movie about singing animals, I think it makes sense they went with this because these are the types of people that we know, right? Do you guys not know anybody like this new Timon and Pumbaa?
No, I think you might be one of them.
Clearly
I,
Pumbaa.
I feel like I relate a little bit
I've
more to the older Timon and Pumbaa. That's definitely how my group of friends were before we were dads, before we were
Yep,
making the dad podcast. We
yep,
were more like
Yeah.
no worries, let's go party in the jungle.
yeah.
Pretty literally,
The
actually.
jungle was like a parking lot.
Yeah, yeah, a dirt patch or something like that.
An overpass.
And under an overpass.
That's right. Yeah, we hung out in classy places, folks. A
Classy
lot of people
joints.
have like How I Met Your Mother, Friends, Cheers memories of college, and we mostly had like, you want to go out in that field?
If you want to go under the bridge,
Let's go under the
Under the
bridge.
bridge downtown.
That's
under
where
the bridge
I
downtown,
love
which was just another dirt patch, or the rocks, which was a dirt patch with rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really feel like what you're saying is
Yeah.
I'm really connected to this. Both movies I do feel that connection, and I only give I'm only throwing shade at this movie because I think it's misunderstanding a lot of what the earlier dynamics of the first movie were, and I think they're changing them for no reason other than I don't know, updating with the times because you can't reference In the Heat of the Night anymore because no one knows what you're talking about because it's 50 years old. No longer 60. It's 60 years old.
Whoa.
Yep.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old movie. Anyway, sorry, I didn't cut you off, Mike. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say I thought that what you said about the I fight against bullies or whatever. I thought that line. I felt the same way that you did about that. That it was really on the nose, and I kind of felt that about a lot of the new rendition of the story. There were a lot of kind of similarly on the nose things where in the older movie it was a little bit not as easy to see. It was the same story, the same sort of purposes were being, they were using things for the same purpose, but it wasn't as easy to see. It was more of a story that demonstrated these truths rather than just saying, "Hey, bullying is bad."
Or like when he's running across the sand dunes and Beyonce's Spirit plays and it's talking about his spirit because he's getting his spirit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude, that song, like, it's not a bad song, but like, I don't care about it. Like, here's a bunch of the songs that we care about because we grew up with. Like, it's Elton John and Hans Zimmer, like, at their best.
Oh yeah.
And to bring in like a new musical style song, it didn't work.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It does not mesh. And they came in and they did additional orchestrations and they tried to change things around, like I mentioned in the with the addition of the saxophones, trying to make it a little more jazzy, a little bit more R&B, so it can fit Beyonce's stylings because it's clear they really wanted Beyonce's input on this, but she does not fit in with Elton John. I mean, actually, if you there's on the Wikipedia, there's a few sourced articles towards a collaboration that was supposed to be between Beyonce and Elton John that never realized into something. I just their styles don't really mix, and that's not saying that one is better than the other at all. But I'm saying here you have a time honored soundtrack of beloved, almost standards at this point because how long the show has been running on Broadway. These are songs that everyone knows. Everyone, and you sing any line from any of the songs in Lion King anywhere, someone's going to get it. And that just doesn't mesh with Beyonce, who might even equally be well known. But that's hers is not piano pop. Hers is not these Broadway sorts of songs. That's not her style. And I don't think I'm insulting her by saying that.
I think she's definitely equally well known.
Yeah.
I do want to say that.
Fair. Noted. Can we just acknowledge the way she sings "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" is just way too overdone, and the whole time she's singing, I'm just like, dude, just say the one note. I don't need whatever it is you're doing with your voice right now.
This I need 27 different notes for one note, man. Come on.
Exactly.
Like jazz, who needs it?
Yeah, but like I mean, to me, that kind of represents the whole movie. Like, the whole movie, it's like, it's good, right? But it's a half an hour longer. It's like, and it's just like that song. Like, it's so simple, it's straightforward. But you add a bunch of notes to what should just be one note, and it kind of ruins it for me. Especially when you have Donald Glover, or better known as Childish Gambino when he sings, also singing, and he's singing very simply. It makes sense. It follows.
It's good singing. I mean, he knows that he's singing with Beyonce, and if you're going to sing with Beyonce, like, yeah, you probably need to take it down a notch.
Yeah, and that's what I felt. I felt like the whole movie is like, on one hand, it's Donald Glover trying to take it down a notch, and the other hand, it's Beyonce trying to make everything bold, new, and crazy, and it clashes in some very weird places to make things very unnecessary, like the whole Nala trying to leave the Pride Rock. Like, that's a good long, at least 5-minute sequence, I think, and it goes on too long. I don't really know why I'm looking at it. I guess it happens. I just don't care.
Yeah, I didn't really mind. I mean,
I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind that. There's a lot of stuff in the new one that I just like the scene, like all the added characters. I didn't mind it. I didn't mind most of the changes or most of the things that they changed in terms of like adding scenes or additional characters and stuff like that. I was like, okay, this is fine. I guess it adds something to the story. It's something that I kind of imagined happened, which is part of why I'm like, well, this doesn't think that I'm, capable of imagining this, but it's okay to give a character more of a story. I'm okay.
I was very okay with it.
It's right. I think that's fine, but like, I'm also, I also had this experience because I was really excited to show this movie to my kids, because I was like, okay, like, we don't really watch a lot of live action movies with the kids. It's mainly a bunch of cartoons. So this is the perfect movie to do it with, right? They both like The Lion King. And here we're just going to watch a live action version of a movie they already know. This is going to be a hit. How can this go wrong? And they were just both so bored the entire time. So like, like, I don't know who this movie is for. Like, it's not for kids. Kids don't really respond well to this because, like, it's so, like, adding things like Nala sneaking off it's boring. It breaks up. It's not an engaging scene. And I just found every edition, like, even the opening with, like, the mouse in the river, it goes on for, like, a full, like, 2 minutes. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude,
It, it
I know what you're doing. You're just showing off your CGI. It looks great. I love it. But, like, can you move on with the mouse, please?
and it's in the first Lion King, but it's maybe 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did want to have to say, Jesse, I think that the world at large disagrees with us. In not maybe in not liking the movie, but in seeing it and kids liking it because it was made for estimated 250 $260 million, and when it left the box office globally, it made $1.657 billion.
Wow.
Uh,
Mhm.
that's Avatar money,
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, like, okay, I know we've been ragging on this movie, but that also makes perfect sense to me. Because, like, if you're gonna go to the theaters with your kids to see a movie and you see Lion King on the list, why would you not pick that movie?
I
Yeah.
almost I was gonna go. I just couldn't go the opening weekend. I was
Mhm.
gonna go regardless of how it was, just because I loved the movie so much, and I was ready to cry my eyes out in a room full of children. I was ready to do it, and just scheduling things happened, and then I saw the reviews, and I was so disappointed that the reviews are. I don't think it's even like fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Um,
Well, okay. To be fair, on Rotten Tomatoes, there's a critic score and the audience score, and the critic score is like 52%, something like that. Audience
yeah,
score is like 89. It's
that is
very
true.
high.
It's the movie they came to see, right? They came
Yeah.
to see The Lion King, and it is The Lion King. Yeah.
Yeah,
So on
you get
Cinema
it.
Score, audiences gave the movie an A on an A plus to F scale. So
Okay.
families liked it, critics didn't, and I happen to be on the side of the critics here as being like, I did watch this to step on a further segment. I did watch this with my daughter. She was locked in, but she has not seen the animated one. We just watched this one just
Mm.
because I didn't really care if this was her first experience to it. She just turned 3 and she had some questions about it. She was
Yeah.
generally interested, but her attention wandered at about an hour 15.
Which is
Oh,
almost to the end of the original Lion King.
Yes, it is.
she's got a longer attention span than I do.
There you go. She like walked out of the room repeatedly after that, and then came back for the final fight scene, and left during that too because it's so dark and so long.
Yeah.
Why is that so long? It doesn't need to be. It's just the same repetitive actions over and over. It's lions smacking hyenas, and then a bunch of hyenas jumping on a lion, and then that just happens a bunch. And then we have
Yeah.
people running around, and it's not the beautiful cartoon elasticity like classic Looney Tunes almost style violence where people are getting like kicked across the screen
It's
and stuff.
hard.
It's
They
Yeah.
get hit. Yeah. Like
they do get
Rafiki
hit
hitting
hard.
people with the stick and the way he's like swinging it like an actual ape, it felt more real and more like I can go out and feel your pain right now. That is freaky. I don't ever want to come into contact with a monkey with a stick. Whereas, like, in the cartoon, when he comes out and he's all like kung fu and stuff, it was so funny and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Why am I watching this fight scene right now? It's so weird.
It's not what I want
Yeah.
to see. I loved it before because like it was funny, but it was also really intense in the rain between Scar and Simba and Scar's begging and all that. And I felt none of that dramatic tension in the end. I
Yeah.
okay. Let me say where I think this movie really sinks in comparison to that original one. Okay, I think that Scar as a character is beautiful. I think it's on par with old Scar. You guys,
It's very different, and in some ways, it's better the way they have it. The different portrayal is it's really good. I'll just
the
leave it
Be
at that.
Prepared song, I love the old one, but this new one I thought was pretty stellar.
I thought it was really good. He's a different character.
Yeah.
He's more
Yeah.
of like he's not a cartoon. He's a
He's-
real villain.
He's less like almost like Shakespearean snidely
Yeah.
whispering to the audience
Yeah.
and more naked ambition and cowardice and desire.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
totally
can
agree with
see
that.
that. You can just see he's been beaten down, and it's even implied in there that like Mufasa's the one that beat him in a fight and gave him the scar.
Right.
Well, it's not
Which
implied. So, I just as a note, they imply that in the original one. They say it. They come straight out and say
They do
it
come straight
in
out.
this one.
He says, "I will not challenge you again."
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm okay with that. Direct statement to the audience of what happened.
Good.
Personally,
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, we're sitting here as arbiters, all of us.
yeah.
And Hollywood's going to listen to a bunch of whiny dads who are like, "You ruined this thing for when I was a kid."
My childhood was perfect. And you ruined it all.
You took my one thing. You took my one thing. No one else liked it. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
I mean, like I don't know what they did to this movie. It's not ruined. I'm not sad that it exists. It makes sense to me that it exists. Of course, it would make money. Of course, people went to go see it in theaters. Now, honestly, like, all right. So you know what? I'm just going to launch into another segment right now. The what if segment. So I've been thinking a lot about this what if question.
All right.
Okay.
What if '94 Lion King never came out, and this live action Lion King is the only version of this story that exists with these songs? Do you guys think it belongs in the Dad Hall of Fame, given that '94 Lion King doesn't exist?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm so glad you asked that question. That's the same question that I have. I don't know, man.
I'm saying yes because the CGI in this at times feels kind of wonky. There, like the opening sequence, there doesn't seem to be a lot of weight to any of the creatures. They seem weirdly weightless. They don't seem connected to their environment very well. But then that gets fixed later on. There's a lot of there's a few moments where you're looking at something that doesn't feel quite right, but then it gets fixed later. I just think it's such a brilliant technical achievement. All the hair and the water stuff. I think that without the memory of 1994's Lion King, I think that on a technical level, this would already be so inspiring. It's like asking if would you like Avatar if Dances with Wolves or Pocahontas didn't exist? And I think a lot more people would say they liked Avatar a lot more if those two movies weren't around. If you weren't comparing it to something in your head already, I think if the only comparison we saw was with Hamlet, and this beautiful, brilliant $250 million CGI rendering of an animal-led Hamlet, I'm pretty cool with it. I think I would like it very, very much, if not love it.
I don't know if I would have been interested in it if I was, 7 years old or something. I would have been like, this is, animals. This is Animal Planet, but with like lines instead of growls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It did have more of like a National Geographic feel to it. Like, this is a documentary about the jungle. It might as well be a real mouse on the screen. I can't tell. It's that good at times. But what about in terms of like story? This story about the father-son dynamic, with the father dying and Simba like carrying around this guilt, thinking he's the one that caused it, and then slowly realizing that like he can rise up to be the man that his father is, or lion in this case.
I mean, it's not. It hasn't changed. It's the same story as the other one. It really does follow almost the same beats. There's minor interactions that are different, but I think that we would all still hail it as a beautifully written work.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and the story is amazing. There's some really beautiful lessons in it. No matter what, no matter how you do it.
I mean, yeah, I think for me, at the end of the day, this is still like Lion Hamlet. Like, this is just Shakespeare given to like to kids, right? Or honestly, with this live action version, I almost want to say it's like 12 years old. I think if you have a 12-year-old, I think they might think this movie is awesome because it's so realistic and they can relate to the characters still and all that.
I might have to disagree with you. I don't think I would have liked it at 12. Honestly, what we're saying about audience, I think it's for. I don't know if teenagers would like it. I think it might be like 10 years old or even younger. Not a
10,
child,
maybe 8.
I think by 12 you're starting
older.
to buck the system, and I think that some of these lines you're gonna feel like it's talking down to you. Sorry, not to quibble with your overall point.
I mean, yeah, but older than like what we saw the original Lion King at, or what my daughter's seen it at, which is like 2 or 3. I think I think this is for an older audience. Things are way too real. They're less cartoony, and if when things are more real, you have to be a little more mature in order to handle it. In order to not be bored by it.
Yeah, yeah, because I really it's only just the Mufasa death scene, which is handled very well in the new one. It actually feels a lot more impactful in the old one. It feels like a bigger
Mhm.
deal.
Oh man, yeah. When Simba comes down, the
Yeah.
dad. I mean, nothing's gonna top that.
No.
No
Well,
voice actor is gonna top that.
it's
Oh,
true, but like, and then when he starts tugging on his dad's ear, but in
Yeah.
this
God.
one, it actually did something. Like, I did he cuddle up with his dad in the original, like he does in this one?
He
Because
did.
like,
He got in the original. He got under his dad's arm. He like cuddled up under his arm. In
oh,
this one, he
that's
doesn't go under the arm because it's probably less realistic.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I
Because
so
the
like
original one
compare.
they made him like
Yeah,
act like a child, and in
yeah,
this one they make him act like a lion.
yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah,
and
yeah.
it
I
was
think that's
more,
it. Yeah,
yeah, it was more realistic, but it also hit right home to me. It was just like, dude, this is, it's like it's a cat that's like cuddling up to his dead father, which
Wait,
even
wait,
if
wait,
it's
wait. You're saying the new Lion King hit home more to you?
I mean, not more like that. That scene had a different impact on me, to be
Oh.
honest. Like it just the way it worked, it was more real. Like I've seen like stuff like that in the animal kingdom at this point, and that's very striking. And I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, other than like I felt basically I felt slightly different things because of the different way they approach both of the live action and the old one. So like I can actually appreciate both for that particular scene. Um, that to such a degree that the new one isn't lesser. It's just in some ways it's very different. But in my mind, since I just keep comparing it to the old one, and and I didn't know that this new one wasn't really meant for like 3 year olds. At least that's what it seems like. It gave me kind of a shock, and also like I was comparing it too much in my mind the whole time to really consider it a good movie.
I think I don't know how you couldn't. To me, remaking The Lion King is if someone told you they're going to remake The Shawshank Redemption or they're going to remake The Godfather. Like that really is how I view this movie. It's
yeah,
it's one of the greatest American films ever made. Um, and when you do something like that, it's not like with The Jungle Book, where I don't know if there's anyone out there repping real hard for the old Jungle Book. I know I like it, but I don't really care about it.
yeah,
And so when
yeah,
the new one came out, I was like, oh, okay, fine. Like that's okay. But
Mhm.
you can't it's not the Lion King or Aladdin. That's fine. Remake it. It's not the Lion King. Or Beauty and the Beast. It's fine. It's not the Lion King. It just the Lion King just stands head and shoulders above almost anything else. So when I hear about like the Mulan remake, I am excited by that idea because I would like to see that story done in a less cartoonish way. I would love to see it more realistic. It's a story about people and about war and about sacrifice and loss and identity and destiny. And
And
it
also, it's so clear from that trailer. I will not take my 3 year old to see that. It's not made for her. I already know that.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And yeah,
Even
and
the
I just
original might not even be for 3-year-olds. I did try and watch it with my daughter, and she was fairly scared, and I forgot about several murders that happened.
Yeah, there's like
oh
death and
yeah,
destruction from the beginning,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's
Yeah,
like murder right away.
yeah.
Um,
Fun
but
stuff.
but so when we're talking about those things, those are well, those movies are loved. They're beloved. They're classics of their own right, but they're classic animated films. And there's something about The Lion King that I think has transcended its culture of animation and just brought it into the world of film. And so I don't think it's possible to watch the new Lion King. To answer your what if question, Jesse, I can entertain it as a possibility, but it's so difficult for me to process in a real way
Yeah,
how to think about this movie without thinking about that one.
yeah. It's impossible. It's always going to be compared to what came before, and that what came before. It's just you don't need to remake it. I mean, like I could see someone saying like, oh, let's update this for the new generation of young kids. It's been what almost 30 years, close to 30 years.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole new slew of kids. Like this is really old animation. Let's do a new one, and that makes sense with a lot of the other Disney movies that they're remaking. the Cinderella, and they actually, I think, did a great job with the remake of Cinderella.
I'd love to hear about that later, Mike.
Maybe on another night we'll
Maybe-
talk a little bit about that.
Maybe episode 5, possibly.
Possibly.
Maybe 7 days from now, that'll be the discussion.
Possibly. We'll have to see.
But who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see. Lion King is Lion King, though. It's not Cinderella.
It's not.
It stands alone.
So great what if question, Jesse. Boy, I'm trying to think of even where to go from here, because I don't want to just consistently be angry about this new movie, angry about this waste of money.
Ooh, I've got one.
Where do you want to go?
Okay, I want to say, and we kind of talked about it a little bit already. I've got something that I can add, but maybe just kind of, what do you think is something that was maybe possibly better in the new version than in the old one? Maybe not better, but they accomplished what they were trying to do a little bit better, or something like that. Something that you actually liked. Maybe let's put it there. Let's set the bar real low.
What did I like?
Something that you actually liked in the new one.
I think we can all say we all like to Be Prepared.
Yeah.
Okay. Great new one. Chiwetel Ejiofor, knocking it out of the park, taking this way more seriously than almost anyone else in the cast.
Yeah.
Treating this like the true Shakespearean drama it is.
Yeah.
I really felt for him in that moment. It's just like I know exactly what you want and why you want it. Like, you're singing not well, but with such passion. Like, Jeremy Irons was like, he was great as Scar, but that whole song was really cheesy. He was like, I'm the villain, and be prepared, everybody, with my army of hyenas. And
My
it
Nazi
was
army of hyenas.
Yeah.
Nazi hyenas.
They're nationally organized socialists, for sure.
Yeah, but this one, it was just like he was hatching a plan. He hadn't even met the hyenas before. He comes in and just says, like, yeah, I'm gonna overthrow the king. Do you want to do it with me? And like making like almost like, a political alliance with them. It was strange. It was new. And I really felt for Scar in that whole song.
Yeah, so it was well done. It was nuanced, right? Like,
yeah.
It was
and
well acted.
Instead of like the rocks like lifting him up to the moon, he was like slowly climbing as he sang all the way up to like the top platform.
Yeah.
And he's almost like begging them, right? Like, be prepared. No, really, guys, you need to be prepared. This is gonna happen. Be prepared, right. And then he goes away.
Yeah, this is
it's more of a conversation than a Broadway piece.
Right. Yeah, this isn't like, him flaunting an army to nobody for the sake of a musical like the 94 one was. This was like him saying, please, I have this ambition. Please be prepared with me. Like, convincing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yes, I like that one. What else, Mike? What are you thinking of?
One thing that I really liked was, the pivotal moment of the movie is when Simba is in the gully and the what are they? Wildebeest? The wildebeest, they come and everyone knows it. Water buffalo.
Mine is pink and yours is blue.
But I thought that the reason Scar got Simba down there made more sense. He says he's bringing Simba down there to practice his roar. I don't think that's the case in the first one.
Original one.
Is that in the original?
Yeah, that's the original one too.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I guess I'm wrong. It was more impactful. I'll say that. There we go. It impacted me more. I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense with what Simba is doing here. He wants to.
You don't remember the Jonathan Taylor Thomas going rawr?
No, I remember that. I remember that
and stuff.
I didn't remember that Scar said that, but wow. Okay.
I did. Well, I think
movies this week, so clearly I've got a good memory.
That scene was set up a little better. Like, I thought they emphasized like Simba's weakness a little more. Like, he's not really strong. Nala beats the crap out of him a couple times. He has a hard time with the beetle or the butterfly or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the roar came. I don't know what it was, but somehow they were able to emphasize that a little more to the point where like it would make sense that he would want to practice his roar. So I actually get what you're saying. That was more impactful in this movie. Another thing that I really liked, I really liked the Lion Sleeps Tonight song.
Oh yeah.
It was, I was laughing really hard the entire time, and also it's the only thing that really got my kids' attention. Like they were playing in the other room and they heard the song come on, and they both like kind of came around the corner, or they did that little kid thing where they're kind of like leaning over by a good 6 inches, even though they can clearly see what's going on, like craning their necks. They're just standing for the entire time the song came on, and then the lion roared and chased everybody, and then my daughter ran away.
I,
Nice.
I disliked that because I remember Pumbaa's wonderful line where he screams, "She's trying to eat me," which is not in this movie.
Pumbaa, what's going on?
Yeah,
It's so good.
I am stumped. I am stumped to find beyond the incidentals of the beautiful photorealistic animation, which
Oh,
which I
yeah.
do have to say and state again my admiration for, and
It's
the
really
general
cool.
good work of the voice actors that they all cast. I mean,
Mhm.
Alfre Woodard as Simba's mother. Gosh, what's her name? Sarabi. It's very, very, very good. She brings a lot of gravitas to that role. Again, Chiwetel Ejiofor is great. Donald Glover's fine. I don't feel like he's doing too much. I think Matthew Broderick had a lot more character in his voice. He brought a lot more personality to Simba. I'm just trying to think about like big
Yeah.
players. Oh, I have to mention the hyenas. So Keegan Michael Key being one of the hyenas who's always insisting in his personal space. I guess it's funny, but it's not, Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, and Jim Cummings from the original ones who just have such perfect chemistry. They work so well together. They're so funny. And I just did not feel chemistry really between any of the hyenas in this. And maybe I think it's very intentional. They're not doing that again,
Yeah.
but I think it's to the detriment of the movie that this is how they chose to do it. So even they're trying to find something I like. I can't. Every time I look at it, I only find more criticisms. Not because it's not like the original, but because I just don't think it works very well.
I think the cheetahs the hyenas, they made that decision because it's a little bit again, it's more realistic to what hyenas actually do.
Yeah.
Just the fact that there's not just 3 of them that show up to begin with, it's the whole pack of hyenas are suddenly there. I mean, they're definitely more they're scarier. A lot scarier, I think. They're not they're not comedy. They're there to scare you. They're there to eat you.
Whereas in the original, like there were only 3, and then out of nowhere in that Scar song, it's like, oh, there are suddenly thousands around here. How did this happen? That's not realistic, and you can't have that in this movie. So yeah, I agree with you on that point.
I think they suck. I'm about out of charity. I think for this new Lion King, I think it's a soulless corporate cash grab, and I think it was successful, and I think they got exactly what they wanted. And I think that it injects nothing that is lasting or necessarily worthwhile to the legacy of the Lion King.
I think.
I'm gonna ask what out of charity was, and then you gave it. So great, there we go. I was curious.
I mean, I think you're right, but also like I kind of want to give Jon Favreau like some props in some ways. Like if you were told to make a live action Lion King, I'm not really sure if you could do much better than this, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Jesse. I agree with you. Vito doesn't.
I agree.
Oh,
I agree.
wow.
If you're forced to do something like this, and by all accounts, he was not forced. He's already done one of these things. He obviously likes this. I'm sure he's paid very well, and I'm sure it's a difficult creative exercise taking these classics and trying to spin them for a new generation. And I'm sure that's a worthwhile creative exercise. And I know him as a good craftsman. I know that he cares about his films, and he cares about his chef show, and he cares about the Mandalorian. He cares about the Marvel universe. He's a deeply caring person who did his best working inside of a giant soulless corporate machine. And I do applaud him for that as well.
Yeah. And I guess force might be too strong, but on the other hand, like if someone offers you millions of dollars to do something, maybe that's not force anymore, but it seems pretty persuasive.
Oh no, it's not. It's not force. But what are you going to do? Not do it?
Yeah.
So I say this all. I hate sounding cynical about the Lion King, but that's the only way I can, given the culture that it's come out in, and given the corporation that's backing it. And look, do I believe that the original Lion King was made with pure artistic intentions? Absolutely not. But what I got was something that does feel very pure. It feels like something very different. It feels very out of left field. I mean, it's focusing on Africa and on these sorts of rhythms and these sorts of voices that in the early 90s were not really a part of that of conversation. And yes, were they run through an Englishman, a gay Englishman, and a German composer? Yes, they were. They were whiteified for our ears, but it was something that was different to a culture that definitely needed it. And for this movie, I don't think it brought any of that. It wasn't revolutionary in any way. It didn't say anything new. It's not trying. It's not being original. So that's my diatribe on it. And I have to say, moving into our last final three questions, is the old Lion King a dad movie? I am saying 100% yes.
Absolutely yes. Unquestionably.
Definitely.
And then will we show it to our children? Of course.
Uh-huh.
I already have, and they love it.
There you go. I can't wait to do it here very soon now that she's seen the new one. Mike, how long do you think you'll wait?
I don't know. A couple of years, I think, before I show it to them, and that's because of my kids.
Yeah.
I think the dead dad thing is something. I mean, it's something that I'm sensitive about.
Sure.
My eldest daughter is a pretty sensitive person, so I think I'm going to wait a little bit before I sort of bring that to her until she's a little bit more ready to handle it. But as soon as possible, that's for sure.
Nice. And then for the new one, is the new one a dad movie?
No.
No. I'm
No.
saying kick this one to the curb. And then will I show it to my kids? I did, but that's because I didn't care about it.
Yeah, I might put it on someday.
I mean, it's on. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
I'm not
Honestly,
showing it to them.
the only time we'd watch it again is if we rented a giant theater and showed it to everybody. I would see it again. Otherwise, I'm not even going to see this movie again. I don't care.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I ever will. Every time I think about it, I'm just going to watch the original one, and I'm going to love it. And I'm also going to be done a half an hour earlier.
Yeah. You could watch like half of the first one again.
I could.
Yeah.
I could at least get to the death scene again.
Yeah, which is amazing.
And then, I don't know. What else is there to say, gents?
I mean, not much more. Honestly, I could talk about The Lion King forever, about like anything from the small nuances, because it's just such a perfect movie. So I'm just going to leave it at this. It's a dad movie. The new one isn't, but it's okay for what they're trying to do. And if that story hadn't existed, I think it would be a dad movie. But yeah,
I agree. All of my biggest issues with the new Lion King is because there's already a movie that is the Lion King. If it was the first one, there would be some minor quibbles, I think, but really minor, and I would generally be okay with it. Not that this is. It's weird because if we're supposed to look at all movies like they're their own things, each movie is its own movie. Then this movie succeeds more than it fails, for sure. It's generally well done. It's just the fact that it has a relationship that it does that makes it so that at least I cannot separate the two things from each other.
Yeah. Honestly, and just looking back on it, like that opening scene that is a shot for shot remake of the original, that's the only big misstep I think Favreau made. I think he should have changed that. He should have given us something slightly different, because I immediately, in comparing it instantly to 94, and I wish it had opened slightly differently.
And
I
also
think
the vocals are layered differently too, which is really distracting because you want to hear the Circle of Life song, and it is that song, but not quite. It's a little different, and it's an uncanny valley of a song because you're going like that's pretty close to what I know and love, but it's not there. It's not it. I don't know.
You know what I kind of feel like I wish I could say to this movie?
What?
Or the new movie?
What?
You have forgotten
who you are.
the original movie, who you really are. Much like Mufasa's ghost says to Simba. And
yeah,
I just want Jon Favreau to go back and realize who he really is, which is not the one who should be making this movie. because no one should be.
He has forgotten the face of his father.
He's forgotten his. Thank you. Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yes. I did want to say if I were writing movie reviews, I would say in my headline for this: The Lion King loses none of its regalness, but all of its teeth.
Dang, that's a good line, man.
That's what I'd say.
Yep, that's about right. And
All right,
I think that sums it up.
I got nothing else.
Well, boy, so teasing for the next episode we're doing. Should we just come right out and say it? We're doing
because we haven't come up before. Yeah, Cinderella.
in case you haven't been listening throughout the whole of this podcast, get to this point.
It's Cinderella.
It's Cinderella.
It's Cinderella. And, the second in our trilogy of Disney classics and remakes.
And also, I'm not sure if we've said this yet, but our next podcast, it's going to be Cinderella.
Oh, wait, what?
Wait, Jesse, what is it again?
It's Rel Cinder.
Yeah, all right. Well, anyway, for all of us here at Not Your Father's Movies, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, everyone, this is Mike from Not Your Father's Movies. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got any questions on tonight's episode, thoughts on movies that should or should not be in the dad canon, and most importantly, things Vito got wrong, we'd literally love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with anything you got at notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. That's notyourfathersmovies@gmail.com. And if that's not enough for you and you want more ways to listen to us, reach us, share us, and support us, check out our website at nyfm.podbean.com. That's nyfm.podbean.com. Shout out to Max Agros for our sick theme music. Thank you, Max, and thank you all again for listening to us. Have a great night.